All right, welcome everyone. Welcome to today's event. We're so excited to have you all here with us today. Today we'll be presenting in partnership with UiPath. Today's webinar is titled Optimizing Cards and Payments Through Automation. Just one quick housekeeping item before we get started. If you can all make sure to use the Q&A box for your questions as opposed to the chat, that makes it easier for us to organize your questions so that we can answer as many as possible. So now I would like to welcome our speakers to the virtual stage and hand it over to Amit.
Thank you, Patrika. And hello, everyone. Good afternoon, good morning, depending upon, where you are joining us from. As Patrika said, my name is Amit Kumar, and I'll be your moderator for next 60 minutes. We have an exciting session today, and we have two industry thought leaders who will be joining me on this particular panel discussion. But before I start, the whole due process of asking them questions and getting to know their insights, I want you to do some time travel in terms of last 18 months, and you would find that the financial services as an industry has had a tumultuous year. And specifically cards and payments vertical within that. If you look back, you would find that the card, the whole consumer behavior and the way payments have evolved has changed considerably. Some volumes have surged. Online payments are at all-time high, but so is claims, so is disputes, so is fraud. And these firms have faced a lot of business resilience issues as far as their operations is concerned. One silver lining has been intelligent automation or automation in general. These firms have applied automation at large to address some of these macro and industry specific challenges. This sets up really well for the session today. And I'll take the liberty of introducing first Keith Edwards, who is joining us from Fiserv, one of the bellwether firms as far as cards and payments is concerned. He's a VP of Intelligent Process Automation Delivery at Fiserv, but I would rather first welcome Keith to the session and let him introduce himself to the audience today.
Great, thanks Ahmed, and hello everybody. I'm Keith Edwards. I work in the Intelligent Process Automation group at Fiserv. My primary role here is automation solution design and delivery. I've been doing this for about 3 years now. And just in general, I'm an automation evangelist. Right? Anywhere I go in the company, I'm always talking about automation, how we can do things and get the human out. So that's my basic role here at Fiserv.
Keith, thank you so much, and looking forward to fielding some questions for you. Perfect. So my next guest is Ahmed Hussain, who's a senior manager, intelligent automation COE lead at Alliance Data, yet another bellwether firm when it comes to cards. Ahmed is no stranger to some of my sessions, but I would still request Ahmed to introduce himself for the audience today before we formally kick this off.
Thank you, Amit. So Ahmed Hussain, I am with Alliance Data. I've been with the organization for about 10 years in different roles, always with process and automation. So my whole entire career kind of revolves around understanding the business challenges and seeing how we can assist and take it to the next level. Alliance Data is a payment solution organization, and we are going through massive transformation and lots of things in store. And as you have mentioned, that pandemic threw a monkey wrench into everything else that we planned, and we are navigating it through. And I think what I would say is we have been able to achieve distances that we probably would not have thought are able to travel in such a short period of time. So it's good and bad. Lots of opportunity opened up. I'm excited to share our story with the audience.
Fantastic, Ahmed. I think it's a great start to our conversation today. And when I was trying to think about how to put across the current state of your automation program, the one word that came to my mind, and it applies to both of you, I'll first start with Keith, is your journey, because it hasn't been just a flash in a pan. I think there is a certain trajectory that, for example, Fiserv, Keith, you have taken there. So from your vantage point, what has been that journey? What have been those key milestones? If you would like to share that with the audience today.
Sure. So the journey for us started about 3 years ago, bringing in RPA was our basis starting point. And we started small. We kind of hooked on with the merchant acquiring side of the house, doing some things in the operation side. And over time, it was very grassroots from the bottom up. And we started getting more buy-in from the upper levels, making it more of a top-down approach. And then, of course, if with the Fiserv history here, there was a big merger with First Data, and that really expanded the team. It got us a little bit bigger with our use cases. There's a lot of opportunity when there's a merger to get the systems to work together. So RPA started to expand, to use a buzzword, hyper automation, right? So there's more of these tools that you could use for automation, like AI, OCR, all these chatbot, all these type of things out there. So our journey was kind of small, but now we're in the issuing side or the banking side. We do a lot of back office automations, operations, IT. So we're now across the enterprise, and we're looking to bring more synergy with the merger, with all the different applications we're bringing in. And as far as the results, you can see on the page there, 230 about automations in production, thousands of hours back to the company of savings, and we have a very healthy pipeline going back to all those different business units. So, and I guess the last thing I'll end is we're very global. We are a global team. We have use cases in EMEA, we have them in APAC, and then just recently this year we got some use cases in LATAM. So we're hitting all the different areas globally and with all the business units within the company.
Fantastic. I mean, from an outsider, the way I would internalize your journey is that pandemic was one major disruptor, but you guys were also doing merger, which was like a major event happening in the organization. And again, I don't hold the brief for automation, but it seems like it is just the right technology to handle some of these big rocks and big, milestones that happen through the life cycle.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the pandemic, and we'll talk about some of my use cases back here. It was hard. I try to treat it as any other situation, but just with more focus. Like we had to really turn ourselves to the clients and what we had to do to support them during the pandemic. And I think we're successful when we talk about that use case. But the pandemic and the merger was a very interesting time for me. That's where I got my gray hair.
No, I think, and the metrics, for all the gray hair, the metrics speak, a story of your success. So thanks, Keith, for sharing that. And, if I may shift over to you, Ahmed, looks like, you in Midwest were perhaps plotting a similar course along the same timeline. Would love to, get more elaborate sort of, journey milestones from you as well.
Absolutely. I think when we were just looking at each other's timeline and the journey, I was taking a double take on looking at Keith's slide, and I'm like, okay, this looks very, very similar to where we are. So it's really amazing, how organization across the industry making this journey and are able to achieve this kind of success. Keith was saying that he got some gray hairs from the pandemic. I think I got the glasses. the initial the headshot that I had didn't have glasses. So anyway, our always have been close to process automation, have always worked into the areas of organization where we are doing the business process automation, BPM, process reengineering. And what we saw that after some time, you have those repetitive activity where associates are just doing the mind-numbing activity, and how do we take that opportunity and blow it out across the organization? That was our kind of initial vision back in 2018. And we started our journey in 2019, where we evaluated the product and we were ready to go. And we knew from the beginning, and we had our leadership sponsorship, as well as the organization kind of came together to say, this is what we need to work as an organization, and not really in a department wise, right? So that was, I would say, the precipitous of the success that we have been able to achieve, where we had the enterprise view and the partnership with the different parts of the organization, IT and others. So what we did in 2019 is we got our COE structured. We were able to achieve the pretty high target that we set out for that year because we had that level of collaboration, we had that level of participation from all those areas, and we were able to complete 60 bots the year we went live with that. Going into 2020, we understood that we have kind of mastered, not mature, but kind of got better at it. We now need to look at what other things that we could be doing, right? The opportunistic task automation that RPA, unattended bots were delivering, that was great, but there are so many other opportunities in terms of leveraging AI to do email classification, being able to use read a customer's letter and comprehend and classify and extract information from there. So those are the things that we started to look at and have performed a few of the POCs. So we are ready for 2021. And in 2021, going into heavily investing into our robotic desktop automation, democratization. We're currently working with democratization of the robotic automation across the organization, and in the future, just like Keith was talking about, chatbot, process mining. How do we gather the automation ideas in a more data-driven way versus the way that we have been able to gather through the organic way, having the conversation with the top leaders, having the conversation with the middle managers and associates as what the pain points are, and kind of doing that grunt work to figure out what is a good opportunity. So pandemic has thrown an opportunity, has thrown a lot of challenge, but it also opened up a lot of opportunity. We finally, realized that we could be working from home and still be pretty productive and get stuff done. And had we not had that, we wouldn't probably be able to grow as quickly as possible. And it also helped us challenge our thought process. Say, if we can do this, if we are all able to work from home and still be pretty, effective, think of what the opportunity could be when we are automating our process and rethinking how we do our work in the future.
Great. And Ahmed, I think, if I may queue up one salient point about Alliance Data is also how you have co-hosted analytics along with automation as well. If you would like to, give a quick sort of overview of, thought process behind having automation analytics sort of, get together as part of your center of excellence.
That's great. Yeah. I think the part of the organization that we are in, it kind of makes us that much more effective. Where I'm part of Enterprise Data Science and Analytics group. We have our data science team who are kind of connected on our hips. And when we are looking at opportunity, we're just not saying that, hey, you know what, I have an RPA tool and let's use that as a hammer, right? Let's think of what is the best technology that will solve the challenge. And when we did that, that journey is not all a rosy picture. We had to try out different things. One example that I would say is when we were first trying to do that email classification, we had a number of different options. Do we want to do that with a custom NLP model, right? Or do we want to leverage a tool like DataRobot? Or do we want to use another tool with Azure Functions to facilitating that work? And we had to go parallel. We had to do parallel pathing. That way, we are able to get to the market quick and also figure out what is our long-term strategy is going to be. We had a lot of pushback from our IT organization also. It's like, you're asking us to do too many things all at the same time. And I'm like, okay, if we take the traditional path, it would take another 8 months, 12 months, 18 months to get there, versus let's reach the value right now. Let's show what the possibility is right now and make the process better over a period of time. So get incremental value, and that gets things excited, that gets your brain flowing, and you know that you can reach a much higher level of heights than what you are able to do.
I think that sets up really nicely with the second part, which is all about value, because we are not automating for the sake of it. I think there is, when both of you in your leadership positions would be setting this up, and even during this journey, I'm pretty sure you would have to really think hard about the value case. And Keith, I'll tee it up for you. You had merger going, you had operational efficiencies. How did the business case look like? What were the different dimensions that you set it up as far as the automation programs concerned?
Yeah, sure. Good question. And I think it's a question everybody has to ask themselves, even past this industry, anybody is starting up an automation group. When we first started, it was very focused on the hours we're gaining, what type of efficiency we're getting back into the company to reinvest in different areas, which is a good metric, is an easy metric to calculate. But over time, we were seeing other opportunities that we should be capturing, other business cases that should be bubbling up to the top. And we really need to take this information and help prioritize our use cases, because there is only so much capacity we have to offer back to the company as well. And just on the slide here, I threw some of the different categories we found over time to be kind of a center of gravity of some of these different use cases. But it all comes back to providing some type of value back to the business themselves. So, for example, the revenue there, tying it back to the payment and card space. If we can onboard clients quicker, there's a revenue aspect there. If we're able to get a product out faster, there's a competitive advantage there. So we take those type of pieces from the revenue side. Client experience is very important, LTR and NPS, and going down the line, risk, and I'll talk about that later on about with audits. People are very sensitive, not only just using automation within the company, but also the auditors coming into our company and monitoring what we're doing. So if there's ways for us to use automation to help finish those audits quicker or get the information the auditors need, it's a highly sought out use case. And then I'll end on the maintain. All this transformational things that we do is going on, but we also have to maintain and keep the lights on for the business. So there's different categories, and I will say this is very fluid. Each use case, we find new opportunities to say there's business value here, but we do gotta classify it in some fashion and normalize it so we can prioritize what's the best use case for the company and that business unit. So this, if you ask me the same question in 2 weeks, this might change a little bit, but it's a very fluid type of dimension.
I think that's a very important point that you made, Keith, that when the automation programs would have started in 17, 18, 19, depending upon the inception, the value case would have been very different, perhaps very narrow aperture, and it has expanded ever since then. And to your point, it may even expand it even further or modify and evolve as things change over a period of time.
Absolutely. Yeah. And getting that alignment with leadership and making sure the goals at the top, match these business values is also important. If your leadership has one metric and you're counting another one, you're just not going to hit the mark there. So
certainly not. And for those of who are from cards and payments industry, I would like to also point out to your point, Keith, when you talked about client onboarding, I would even extend it to merchant onboarding. Given the fact that that's one part of the revenue leakage avoidance, that as soon as you can get the merchant onboarded on your systems, essentially the clock starts ticking. So that's a very great example that you took in terms of the onboarding. Ahmed, does it seem? It seems very comprehensive, but I would like to know your thoughts as well, overlay Alliance Data's perspective, and share that with our audience today.
Absolutely. So our value, what we have done is we kept it simplistic as how many hours given back to the business, the capacity given back to the business, and it has worked well for us so far. However, when we are looking at the compliance benefits or audit benefits and things, those things don't equate well with the hours being reflected, because what our auditors are going to find. It's probably one person doing the work, and if they don't do that, you could be in a much bigger problem than hundreds of associates doing the work, and they're probably making some errors, and you get a much bigger hour lift, but they're probably equally, or sometimes that small effort probably is weighted even higher. So what we did is we had kept our KPI to be simplistic initially, and now we are kind of venturing into the abilities of looking at the efficiencies and effectiveness. What are the drivers that are out there? Do we have are we able to reduce the effort because less resources are having to do that? Improving the quality and making sure that there's a revenue generation out there where we could be leveraging that, right? Improving the experience of associate. There are a number of automations that we have done where associates probably had to do that work once every hour, log in and do, pull some information and do that. So how are we able to improve their experiences, improve our brand partners' experience as well? If they are reaching out to us and getting a quicker response and an accurate response, that's much better than they have to wait for someone on the team getting back to them over a longer duration, and improving the customer experience overall. And finally, the compliance aspect was another one that we had, where improving our audit process, improving our ability to figure out what items are compliance related and satisfying FDIC, CFPB, being in the financial organizations, right? So we kept our initial goal as hours being given back to the organization, and now we are coming up with a picture that Keith has as, let's also show the value that are in those areas of experience, improving associate experience, improving customer experience, quality and audit, and really show the holistic benefit, not just focus on the hours. It probably is a good one to get started with and get excitement going, and you're able to see the value very easily. But you also have to go after the other items that are also equally or sometimes even more important. And it takes a village to get this done, right? You have to have the partnership from your finance, you have to have the partnership from your HR, and IT is someone who you really need to have on your side. Information security you really need to have on your side, and then just sky's the limit, making sure that you challenge the thought process and kind of start to build those and deliver those.
Absolutely. And I'll hold on to the employee experience part, the associate experience part, because if you are in cards and payments in last 1 year and you're part of the fraud or part of the dispute process or a claims process, as an associate you would have seen surges, a spike, and then if you have to do a lot of these things manually while working from home or at the height of pandemic, I think automation is definitely one of the levers that needs to be pulled to ease that sort of pain or inconvenience at their end. So I think that's again a unique sort of perspective as far as the business value, Ahmed, in your commentary, as compared to what originally was just about number of. Fantastic. So I think we're just warming up, and now one of my favorite things is to really make it real, to make it very, very topical and specific. And what I would request is, Keith, starting with you, something that comes at the top of your mind in terms of a use case that is basically could be an icon or a metaphor for your automation program, something that explains your whole automation thought process. If you would like to give an overview of the same and the results that you got out of it.
Yeah, sure. So go back to what we first started with COVID. It was a game changer, right, for us and probably for the years to come. Matter of fact, I'm finally back in the office here. That's why it looks kind of weird. But we're trying to get back to normal. But during that time, a lot of things changed in the digital payment space. and not on this slide, card not present activations. We had to change so people could take transactions over the phone and things like that. Just everywhere in every aspect of our business, we saw something that we had to react to. And in this use case right here, and excuse me for being a little vague with this, back to that security thing, we did have a client here that was giving out funds to their clients through prepaid cards. And just because this happened so fast, the information wasn't getting back to them, to the end user who was getting the cards, that they were getting them first in the mail, and that they had to activate them. So we're seeing a lot of these cards not getting activated. So they went through a campaign to tell them to activate their cards. And what they found was a lot of them were losing their cards. They thought it was junk mail, or they threw away the activation code and things like that. And because of that, we had to reissue the cards for our client. And that the volume was just massive. The help desk couldn't handle it. And we're getting to the point where we're about to make a large investment with contractors and third parties to onboard for a few months, 6 months, 8. Well, it went a lot longer than we thought to handle this volume. So before we made that jump, we said, okay, well, let's look at the process. Let's look at this, at the things that we can do here, maybe through automation. And the solution we came up with is we built an IVR for the clients to call into, provide the information that we need to reissue, and then we handed it on to a bot. And that bot had poor man's AI, but it had some type of specs to validate the request, and then eventually went into the different applications to process that request for the client. It's very simple when I say it, and it's very elegant. There was some hoops to go through, but at the end of the day, it was that simple as I say it. And we were able to do it very quickly. And back to what Ahmed was talking about with the partnership with the different groups, like all the moons aligned, all the different planets aligned, so we can get this thing out very quickly. And at the end of the day, as you see on the slide, some of the benefits, I mean, we avoided all that millions of dollars of cost over time. None of that ever happened. Accurate, the bots don't make mistakes. And the SLA was astounding. We put ourselves, the real SLA was 24 hours, but we gave ourselves a 5-hour SLA, and we hit it every single time. And there was days where we had 30 bots running at a single time to handle the call volume, which didn't stop. Like I said, we thought it was going to be for a few months. It's gone on now, even for this year. But it's a great success story, and it really kind of showed everybody else in the company what the capabilities are with automation. So from this, it actually stemmed some more use cases. But this is just one example of the use cases that we were dealing with during the COVID pandemic. And like I said, some of it now is backtracking those changes. So now we're going through the automations to pull out the changes we did. And in some cases, it's staying in place, right? Now we're going to keep the bots there and maintain them for a longer period of time. So I think this is a good use case that kind of shows the program here at Fiserv. And just in general, how you can use automation to solve your problems if you take the time to look at the process end to end, and then get those teams aligned to work with you through IT and the operations side of the house.
I cannot but say that this particular use case actually shatters a lot of stereotypes. I think one stereotype that it shatters is how aligned or embedded automation can be with channels like telephony, right? I mean, incoming calls. Typically, stereotype is that, oh, it could be an unattended automation happening completely in back office in terms of people doing things manually. Here is the automation that is interacting with the user, especially the customer experience. That would be one. I'm as a third party, just trying to internalize it. I think the second stereotype that it's certainly puts to rest is, I know automation of course can be deployed quickly. How almost like everyone in the organization would come together to deploy it less than 1 week. I mean, in a financial services ecosystem, to get so many characters, stakeholders get on the same page, and from Monday through Friday just go ahead and put it in production is no mean feat. Those are the two things that come to at top of mind, apart from being a amazing value case that you have shared with us.
Thank you. Yeah, it was a challenge, and that was, I don't know where else my gray hair is. That caused the other gray hair to make it. And we'll talk about later on about some of the lessons learned. It doesn't just happen. I don't want to make the the claim that automations can be done just like that. But when you have the business aligned to what you're doing and they understand what you need to automate with the the requirements and the process and things like that, things can move very quickly. But there has to be a partnership with that business unit, right, to make this happen. You can't just punt it to us and say automate it. It's just not going to go quickly that way.
Good. And again, I cannot but help myself marveling at this. And of course, this could be another 60-minute discussion just on this use case itself. But I'll I'll hold and stop nerding out on that one and pivot to Ahmed. Ahmed, I think it is only fair that you talk about some of those AI plus RPA use case, because I think that's where you guys have dabbled in recent times. And any success story or use case that you would like to share with us.
Sure. Yeah. So the story that we have related to AI and use cases are we have done majority of our initial use cases at the back office, right? Where the work is, we know here's this X number of associates that are doing this work. The work is very much regimented, and we have been able to address that. And one of that was one of the use cases was when our customers are reaching out with a secure message channel to say, hey, I have a late fee on my account. Can that late fee be removed? Right? When the pandemic hit, and associates and customers, we were all impacted on our own ways. And we have seen, how the initial impact hit our customers, and there was an influx of volume of, inquiries that came into our care center, to the phone calls, as well as those email queues filled up so quickly that it was just not feasible for the staff that we had, and then the kind of volume that we planned for to address that. So we utilized RPA to to guide our customer in a more humble way, to ask them to contact in a channel that that will help us help them and assist them more effectively. And that's where we used RPA. We had to build a solution within a week, and get that volume under control. And what we also realized is a lot of the email that our customers are sending, we probably have just high-level criteria, but if we can understand, if we can classify what they're asking for, we can actually take that automation to the next level. That was a scary context, right? When you are saying you're reading an email and you're making sense out of it, and you're automating that. So what we did is we thought of, let's go do the let's get the speed to market by showing our associate what that cognitive service, that geekiness is doing. Here, when they're bringing up their message, we're passing that to NLP text model, and then kind of give them a prediction saying, we think the customer is asking us to remove their late fee. Do you agree or not, right? And now they're not having to read all of those and making all those decisions. They're reading that and then saying, yes, I agree. The moment they're saying they agree with that work, I'm able to pass that off to my unattended bot, who which is able to go through the business logic of saying, has this customer had tremendous relationship with us, or have we already credited their late fee recently and they just don't qualify, but are there scenarios where we could be a little bit more lenient, right? So the business logic goes in, gets implemented, and we're able to take care of that request much faster. When it was going from end to end, I think it took somewhere from 2 to 8 hours to respond to an email, versus when it was done by this human in the loop interaction, where the associate is interacting with a desktop a bot to pass in that information, understand, interact with that prediction, and handed it off to unattended bot. It was done in most cases less than 30 minutes. They're getting their responses much faster. So that is how we thought we can get adoption and from our organization and the business leaders. They didn't feel that it's such a scary thing because they're actually able to see what the machine is doing behind scene. A lot of times where it becomes scary for us to explain about this bot is, they're doing the work in the back end, and I don't know how it's doing it, and I don't know how to interfere or intervene. But that human in the loop kind of got us the trust. Now we're talking about being able to scale that at a level that we were not able to think, and we have the credibility built on our back that we can go big with that. So that's a great item where we leveraged AI, we leveraged attended automation, we leveraged unattended automation, and really orchestrated a end-to-end process for our organization.
Fascinating. I think again, the term is basically it's unorthodox in terms of and also some stereotypes, again I'll use the word, are not being adhered to, that it's not an AI that is replacing a human completely out of the flow. I think you reimagine the process, but you still have that associate at the center, given the fact that it's customer experience angle also associated with, you wouldn't like to take a wrong decision and hence even make things even worse at the cost of SCP or reducing the amount of touch points. Great example, Ahmed, and I think again that use case itself could be a conversation for 30 minutes, but again, we don't have a luxury of time. And I'll move on. Again, we have, even though I represent a technology company and we are fairly proud of the work that we've done, we also understand that it's not hunky-dory. It's not that you put technology and things will happen on their own. If I may say, all three of us have had a lot of battle scars. I think the audience would like to know what those lessons, what those challenges, difficulties that you face, so that somebody who's starting now doesn't necessarily have to reinvent the wheel or start from scratch itself. Keith, what was what were those lessons or best practices that you stumbled upon in your journey?
God, I don't know if I can. I think that's like a 3-day conference right there. But just a few of them on this page right here. I maybe want to focus on the center there with infrastructure and security, and bringing it back to the payment industry, the fintech industry. We have very complex systems done on purpose, really, because all the PCI and PII data and things that we have to manage and protect against, it's not simple. Our systems are complex. Our security is very high, and it's something not to overlook, right? When you're looking at the infrastructure readiness, what was simple, watching the automation or watching the process from a human perspective, can be 10 times as complex for the bot, because at the end of the day, it is IT. At the end of the day, it is some type of code or a product that's working with it. So you do have to partner with the IT teams, infrastructure all the way up to the app level. And for the app owners who may be fearful of a bot coming in there, who may think that they'll hit their systems too much and cause a DDoS attack or something like that. So you got to work with them to make sure all the parties understand what the bot's doing and give that visibility, like he was saying a second ago, they understand what the bot is, and there's no magic. There's no black box where this thing happens and something comes out, especially if there's an issue. They want to be able to come in there and understand it. And then tying back to security, those, I mean, they do make things complicated and tough, but that's their job. And I appreciate them challenging us about keeping things secure and safe, and why do you need access to this database and things like that. We got to listen to them and take their lead on what we're doing with the automation space. So it's good to keep them, fully engaged with your service offering, with your roadmaps, and just in general touch points about what you're doing for the company. Because if you have that partnership, and when something new is coming out, they'll remember you and they'll say, okay, wait a second, I know we have bots out there. Before we make this change, let me go talk to this team and make sure we're not going to break anything. So getting that partnership from the IT and the CISO side is really important. And then on the sides there, that's important as well, with the customer commitment, talking about that 1-week use case. One of the reasons why it was so successful is the stakeholder, like I said, knew how to engage us. He knew what applications we need access to. It was all in place. And the more engagement you have like that from business units, opposed to a business unit thinking, hey, here's my problem, go fix it, you're on your own. It takes something that could take a week long to a year long, literally. I've had use cases still in the works out there that haven't been deployed because we haven't had great stakeholder engagement. And then finally, the documentation, kind of a no-brainer, but it does get left off to the side. It's important to document the process that you're doing, the automation, going back to an audit perspective, and even the operation side. A lot of people forget after we deploy things, there's care and feeding that has to happen with it. The bots do need some love, right? And if something happens and you don't have good documentation about what the bot's supposed to be doing, you can also have a bad day and be on an outage call, and we don't want to be there. So just some high level ones, but really infrastructure and security is one of the key areas that I take every day. But every use case has a lesson learned that you should always try to take back and incorporate back into your process there.
Keith, if I may use the metaphor, this is basically a bucket full of pragmatism, essentially, in a sense of all those elements, components that people, in a large, complex financial services organization like Fiserv, it's if somebody is in analogous organization is going to face similar challenges. I hope the audience today is taking notes. Otherwise, in any case, the recording is going to be available for reference as well. But that was amazing commentary from your side. Ahmed, your thoughts on this?
My thought on this is you need a village to execute on automation. And I could use Keith's slide to talk about exactly the same thing. You need the participation from all these parties to be successful. There are, battle scar. There are, lessons learned. I know when we first got started and our information security was very leery, like, okay, what if something bad happens? Someone gets hold of the bot and does a big damage. We had to work with them and give them the sense of comfort, give them the process and how it's going to be managed like any other IT project, right? Being able to do the documentation, making sure that your enterprise service delivery framework is compliant with what we are doing here. The service desk management, being able to follow the same incident and change process that you deploy an IT code for these bot processes that we're delivering from the centralized COE. They're also following the similar path. The village has the groups from accounting and finance to look at how are you delivering the value and does it meet the target, and that also opens up the gate to ask for the future incremental funding increases from HR impact, how associates are impacted with that, and being able to manage the associate on the ground as well as this digital worker. They're also doing the work and then the kind of support that it needs, and then being able to capture the capacity planning for us in the future. So they are a key partner. Doing the business continuity and disaster recovery, we are learning after 2 years saying, okay, now if we reduce the headcount of a given area to a level and suddenly pandemic happens and you have a whole bunch of work come in, who's going to do that work? Can we get the bot spun up enough quickly to get that work, and the work that was on associates queue, do we have the right level? And we are having that conversation with our business stakeholders to say, you probably don't want to go automate to 100%. You need to have this level of staffing on the team. That way, those exceptions as well as the increased volume can be handled without disrupting the SLAs and such. So I would say that those are some of the high-level lessons learned. You just need to work and be able to willing to work with them and give them the sense of comfort of that we're working on this together. We're going to be working to deliver in the same organizational policies and practices we have in place. And if you can stay with that as much as closely as possible, where the IT delivery practices as well as information security practices that the organization has identified, you would have a much better success in that to convince them, as well as make them see your vision. Some of the other lessons learned we are experiencing as we are pushing the boundary of doing more of intelligent automation, including other tools and technology to deliver automation, where we are leveraging, let's say, other third-party tools, let's say Data Robot or document understanding, email classification. So what we are figuring out is, we need to have a different processing power. For image processing, you need a GPU, and we're going through and establishing that. When we were just evaluating those options, with the Microsoft kind of coming in, and we're using Azure. So when Microsoft came in and showed us in a couple of days, oh, you can do it this way. But then when you are trying to implement that in your own organization and making sure all the policies and procedures and how the data is going to move in and out, that takes a lot of effort. A lot of hands are in there, and you have to answer a lot of those questions. So it takes that 2 days implementation can take 6 months to really making sure that you're able to establish, you're able to support, you're able to do the disaster recovery testing and go live with a solution. So I would say just be patient if you're trying out with new technologies, and think of those things and making sure that you keep those stakeholders informed as what your priorities are, what your business drivers are, and just take one step after another and continue to march on, and never get disheartened that, okay, it's taking longer, because RPA automation can be very quick, but then when you are doing those complex AI items, it may take a little longer than what you would anticipate with just doing RPA.
And I think the stakeholder alignment was the common theme, common fabric, connecting you with, what Keith also mentioned at Fiserv. I think that's a common element here in terms of this is just not a program in isolation. It is not happening on its own. It is basically aligning with the entire ecosystem, whether it is on the technology or on the business side. You have to keep everybody informed and aligned, so to say. So I think that's one key takeaway, I would say. I have one eye on the clock as well, and I think we need. This is one of my favorite questions typically, which is looking ahead. And given both of you are at a vantage point in your organizations, what is your vision if you would do a little bit of crystal gazing? Keith, I'll start with you. What do next 2 years look like? The journey has been great. What does the path forward look like as far as Fiserv is concerned?
Yeah, so we're going to continue with our core, which is RPA and some of those other automation tools. So we really need to expand the offering we have when it comes to automation with more BPMS tools, NLPs, chat, like we talked about. But also, we really want to democratize and empower the users. I've said this to my team before, and I'll say it here. My vision is to have a bot for everybody. So everybody has that capability of doing their own automation in a controlled fashion. I should say that as well. But I really feel that there's automation out there everywhere, and there's those micro use cases that are throughout the company, and it really needs to be done in those little groups and maintained within their own groups and democratize that opportunity. So I do see us growing that, like I said, the offerings that we have, and we will do those bigger use cases for the buzzword hyper automation, taking a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and coming up with a single solution. But then for the smaller use cases, to empower those users to help themselves. Talk about employee satisfaction. It's satisfying, right? If you were able to automate something for your own team, or even for yourself, and save you a few hours or minutes per day doing something, and plus keeps you interested. Some of these solutions are low code. You don't have to be a developer per se. You can learn from the web through academies and things, and kind of self-teach yourself, and even get into this into this industry, right? It seems like a lot of people want to get in and learn this and deploy things. So those are two big things I want to push with the company, with Fiserv, is expand that offering and get more users involved with their own automation.
Uh, I think you use spot on in terms of, I think technology, I would say there is a self-service, there's self-learning, but at the same time, given the fact that we are talking about financial services, the whole control aspect, the governance aspect also has to happen hand in hand. So we'll be fascinated to see your journey unfold, over the next year or two. Ahmed, what's next for Alliance Data? I mean, how are you guys sort of, if I may use the word, right? I mean, what does the next 18 to 24 months looking like as far as the firm is concerned?
Yeah, so our next one is making sure that we are able to do intelligent document processing well. A lot of our interaction with our card members is still the ones that prefer to handwrite or type the letter and send it to us. How are we able to process those correctly? And even without that, there is, based on one survey within our organization, somewhere around 80 to 85% of all interactions are with unstructured data. So how do we make sense of those data and be able to automate that around it and make it not a black box kind of AI. It's something that we can do it in an explainable AI, which is important in the banking and regulatory kind of framework, where how are we making that classification? How are we able to make that distinction that this customer of ours is asking us to do, asking us to remove their late fee, or they're asking us to contact their attorney because they would not, we would need to do a cease and desist with them. So when we look at that document AI, we're looking at, broken that problem out into two big chunks. One is unstructured text typed document, and unstructured handwritten. Handwritten is a lot more complex, so we're going to be looking at it in 2022 and such. But we are currently working on the unstructured type document and processing those. Another big one that we are working on, as we have a hyper growth with our automation initiative within Alliance Data, to take it and maintain that kind of hyper growth momentum. Our centralized COE, which is also pretty sizable, is not able to deliver that. We would need to get that automation benefit from many associates across our organization building their own automation. They are the ones that know what the pain points are, and being able to do that in a controlled way that our information security and IT is supportive of. That's how we plan to grow. So a big push on democratization of automation. And then the third piece that we're also working on is figuring out how to do the automation today. We're doing a lot of organic conversation with our leaders, with our senior managers, saying, "Hey, can automation be an assistance in your organization?" But a lot of times, leaders, us, we don't know what are the associates really doing. So the process mining, task mining is going to help us to, give that benefit of maybe doing the requirements part of RPA much faster, right? And also create the visibility of, are there any process inconsistencies, process gaps between associates doing that, and also identify the areas where systemic and data-driven way of, you can easily do the automation in these spaces with attended or unattended and get to that value even faster. So those are the high-level items that we're working on. Chatbot and things probably will be coming after.
One reason for smile on my face is also this helps firms like us actually validate our product roadmap. I mean, I'm looking at this and I'm thinking about UiPath platform in terms of the key components that we have introduced in recent times. So one of the good feedback or messages that I'll take back to my product and engineering leadership. So thanks for sharing this perspective as well. I have an eye on the clock, and I think we have just about 5 minutes left. If I may, use the power bestowed on me by somebody, some moderator god, I'll try to pass the baton to Patrika. If there are any questions from audience, we might be able to take a couple of them, Patrika.
Sounds good. So we do have a couple of questions that have come in, so I will read those out. So the first one is the card replacement use case that Keith described. What convinced you to use bots rather than an API approach? For example, the IVR payload could have been orchestrated through RESTful web services to order replacement cards rather than the bots doing it.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. Yeah, in that case, the APIs weren't in the backend systems for the bot to pull in or through the IVR. Matter of fact, some of those are in the legacy systems, and they're trying to push off into different systems. So when we got engaged, that analysis happened already, and we were the only option they had left before they started onboarding third parties. But to that point, we've had use cases where they asked for the bot, and we looked at it and say, no, an API would be better. Go see if we can use that instead. And sometimes that's available, sometimes it's not. And then it's a decision, right? Do we want to put a bot or something like that in place until the new system comes up, or the API or the new database or whatever else might be out there? So there has to be decisions, a good business decision to say, do I use this bot, which is kind of like the human using the GUIs and things, opposed to using the more technology-based, quicker, faster APIs. We had another use case during the pandemic where we started with the bots, trying to hit and do some uploads for requests, and then we flipped over to the API when it was ready. And the only reason we did is because it was such a high-profile use case. Typically, we would have backed out as the RPA team and said, let the other groups use the API. But yeah, so that was the reason. You're right. The API would have been faster and better. It just wasn't an option for that one use case.
Awesome. Thanks, Keith. And then the next question is, I noticed that automation was rolled out within a week for the two use cases, card replacement and a fee waiver. Isn't that too short of a timeline to get a buy-in from the stakeholders? As you mentioned, that automation projects need a village.
You want me to go first? Or at least in my case for that one, the stakeholders came to us, right, with the problem. So the buy off or payoff or from them was already done. And again, that group had used automation before. It's one of our biggest users of automation in the operations side of the house. So they gravitated to that option right when the problem started coming up. And like I said, they knew what we needed to get the automation going, and we already knew a lot of the systems because we had automations inside those platforms before. If it was brand new, talking to a group for the first time, it could have taken a lot longer. Just in the infrastructure space, talking about that again, you would have to get your unattended bots access to the different, opening up the firewalls or loading the programs and software on the servers. But in that case, we've had a strong history with them, and we had to do something, right? Something had to be done very quickly. So it was kind of a different circumstance for it.
And it's the same response that I was going to say, because you cannot just go do that within a short period of time. I think it's a zinger to say, hey, I did my automation and, a big automation in 5 days. Or 1 or 2 weeks, but it's only possible when you have an eager, customer who is wanting to get things done. It is also something that the bot team has worked with the interacting systems, and you don't have concerns about access and information security and other things, and you know exactly what you need to deliver. Then things can go much faster. But typically, you would want to go through the proper rigor of gathering the requirements, having the buy-in, having vetting it to see if bot development is the right course of actions or not, and then go back through the development process.
Awesome. Thank you. Those are both great answers. I think we have time for one more question. So our last question will be, what are the talent and resource challenges faced while driving these automation programs? And I'll leave that one open.
I'll take that. You kind of continually have to challenge your team members to learn more technologies than what they have initially started the role. So what we are trying to push is, you need to be primary in something and then go learn how to do maybe process mining and task and get as much of knowledge in there. We are making self-learning as part of your own development growth, and making those available to our associates are are the key foundational approach that we are utilizing. So just pushing with that, and then finding those resources are challenging. Everyone needs them, and to move them through to get their automation done. So you kind of have to just hunt, and hopefully you find the good resource and train them and bring them up to speed.
Awesome. Anything to add, Keith?
No, I mean, he covered it pretty well. One of our challenges too is excuse my language, it's a very sexy industry right now, right? A lot of gravitation to this thing, and retention's kind of challenging, right? We bring in the groups here, we skill them up, and they're jumping to new opportunities. I'm happy for them. I've lost some great people, but I'm happy they're advancing their career. But there's a lot of movement going on with this industry, so it's a challenge to keep and retain some of that quality. Going back to the cards thing, the more history you have with the applications, the quicker you can get an automation out. So if it's a continuous revolving door with new people coming in, it can slow down some of the use cases. So that's where my challenge I see over the next few years.
Wonderful. Well, thank you all so much. This has been amazing content, and I know this virtual audience has gotten so much powerful insight from you all. So a special thank you to Amit for moderating and keeping us on track. And thank you to Keith and Ahmed for sharing your incredible insights. We all appreciate you so much. And to the audience, thank you so much for joining us today. And we hope to see you soon at another AI4 event and at our upcoming AI4 2021 event. Thank you so much and have a wonderful day. Bye now.
Thank you.
Thank you.